Welcome in, Hoof listeners. It is Wild Card Weekend. Welcome to the Wild Card Preview here on the Sunday Preview Show on the Hoof Podcast. Anthony, we finally made it to the playoffs.
Playoffs, it's here, baby. Yeah,
It was a blink of an eye, right? Blink of an
right?
eye,
It
and here we
seems,
are.
didn't we just start the season? Wasn't it just week 1 and we're giving our predictions for the season and all that? And here we are, postseason time, baby. It's here already, and we're talking about who's making a run to the Super Bowl, and lucky for us, our Bills are still right there where they need to be to make a run. But yeah, it's wild that the
Yeah.
season just disappears so quickly. Where did those months go? I mean, all the holidays are gone,
hmm
it goes by so fast,
And
and
I
yet
feel like there's a lot of anxiety on Wild Card Weekend because nobody wants to be one and done.
correct.
You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Especially the higher seeds. If you're the 2 seed, 3 seed, if
Much
you're
more
hosting a
pressure.
playoff game, there's a lot of pressure, right?
Yes,
And these
yes.
games are always tough. You never really know how it's going to turn out, right? Because it's a different speed. You don't know how the teams react to that. I think
Mhm.
historically, good quarterbacks react well because you need to make a play here and there. But really, they're put to the test in the
Yeah.
playoffs, right? And
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what.
it's a whole new season, basically, right? It's week 1 again, so we can't rely on, "Oh, the Cowboys were good all season, and the Green Bay, they kinda hobbled in and were up and down all year and whatever." No, that doesn't matter anymore. It's those 2 teams, and if Green Bay has a good day and Dallas even stubs their
Right.
toe a little bit, they could beat them, right? Any team can beat any other team. That's what the playoffs is all about now. And it's going to be exciting. I think this first weekend, especially. We got a few really good storylines and slates, and I think the NFL got a lot of what they were hoping for or could have hoped for out of this first batch of games. But yeah, some exciting football about to happen, and it's one game at a time. So the national attention is on every single game, and that's a fun way to do football.
Yeah, and you got
Always the
3
best.
days of football, right? You got 3 full days to look forward to, starting at 4:30 on Saturday,
Hmm.
right? 1 o'clock on Sunday, normal schedule, and then the Monday night as well. So, a lot to look forward to every single day. I think
Hmm.
that's a good setup for the way the playoffs are now. It keeps us engaged for sure. Like
Absolutely,
every
yeah.
single day is football day now.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, the super wild card weekend. What's that for? To keep people over, and make sure they're paying attention to every game. Yeah. So on every different day. Yeah. So
Yeah.
NFL owns their months. When the NFL is on, nothing else matters, right? So
Yes.
I don't know about I don't follow NBA if there's any big NBA matchups or
I don't even know
whatever
what
else
that
is
is.
going
Yeah.
on. There's nothing else that matters right now. It's the
Yeah.
NFL playoffs.
Yep. All the way up to the Super Bowl, and then we switch to college basketball. At least in my house,
That's
that's what we do.
there you
But
go.
anyway,
Yeah.
we're not there yet. So, huge news that we got to talk about here: Belichick, Nick Saban,
Yes.
and Pete Carroll all out. Didn't get a chance to talk about this.
Hmm. Yeah, different story here with a couple of them, right? So we can start with, I think, the latter two there, Saban and Pete Carroll. Um, the Saban one surprised me at first. I thought my friends were joking. One of them texted me, "Oh, did you just hear Saban just said he's just came out that Saban's retiring?" I'm like, "No way. Why would he retire?"
Right.
However,
Pretty shocking.
when you reflect on it deeper, you realize that college football has changed so much,
Oh, it's going
and
to
that
change a lot next year, too,
Saban's
right? More
Saban's
changes coming.
attitude and approach and his way of doing things no longer flies, right? You can't just recruit people because you're Alabama. They're going to come for the NIL money and they're going to go to other places now. So he's smart. He knows, okay, I've done this for a very long time. I am the best coach in college football history, and he's done it all and more. Now is a perfect time to say, I'm going to bow out and just spend time with my family. And, I've done what I could. And rather than try and adapt and be something that I'm not in order to adapt to the new system, it's time for me to go. And I think that was a wise move on his part because, I don't think it's going to be hard to replace a guy like Saban, and that organization, that institution is going to probably be on some lower years now that he's out, and that college football landscape is changing. So that one
Right.
surprised me at first, not so much at the end. Pete Carroll, I mean, certainly older guy. You knew that he was well into his coaching career and could call it quits at any time. And that one didn't surprise me as much for the situation
Yeah,
he's in.
I agree. Yeah.
High energy coach when he's on the field, always fun to watch, always fun to see him be a leader of a team. But I have a lot of respect for him as well, and sad to see him, go, but happy for him at the same time.
Right. Well, the other thing is you're losing to Kyle Shanahan every year. You're losing to Sean McVay, young, innovative minds, right?
Yes.
So it's just feels like time for him.
Right, exactly. And then you have Bill Belichick, right? And say what you want about him. He's the cheatiest coach in NFL history. He had Tom Brady carry him for all of those years. I'm trying to pick all the bad things I could think of. Anything else?
Yeah.
What else bad
It's
can we
over.
say about
You
Bill
can
Belichick?
now we can watch the documentaries and
You're
move on
right.
with
I
our
mean,
life. It's
and
over.
what surprised me the most about Bill Belichick? How insignificantly it impacted me. I didn't care. I didn't care one bit. In fact, if anything, as a Bills fan, I was sad to see him go at this point because he sucks as a GM, and that team was going nowhere, and they're one of the worst rosters in
Right.
the NFL right now. So the longer he stuck around, the better, in my
Yeah.
mind.
It seems like a failure to adapt to the way the NFL is now, right?
Correct.
Favors the passing game, speed,
Yeah.
kind of beats physicality a little bit like we've seen. And it just seems like the Patriots are still trying to play
Yeah.
2008 football.
And I have a lot of respect for the way they went about it, right? Never have we ever seen anything like what happened today with Kraft and Belichick, where it was a mutual press conference and they both said, you know what, it's just time. This was a mutual agreement. And this is a celebration day of all that we've done together. And it's so unique and kind of like eyebrow raising, like, wait, is this really happening?
Mhm.
You're fired, but it's a
Right.
mutual and we're thank you. Even in situations where it's ended good, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. And it was very clear that Belichick intends to continue his coaching career. My wife asked me
Mhm.
about that, like, isn't he getting old? I'm like, listen, that guy is going to be coaching when he's in a walker and a
Yeah. Well,
wheelchair on the
his dad
sideline,
coached. I think
and
his
they
dad
drag
coached
him
all
out
the
of
way
there.
into his 90s, right?
Yeah,
For
I
the
mean,
Naval
and
Academy.
exactly, Belichick will do the same if he's given the opportunity. Now, I know he's everything he's done in his career. Yeah, he's this great mind. Football has changed, and I swear, if I'm hiring a coach, there's no way in hell I'm considering Bill Belichick. It's not today's NFL anymore. He's a failure over the last 3 years as the NFL has changed. Forget all the 20 years ago nonsense. We're not pulling out the ghost of coaching past to coach in today's NFL. That's not how it works.
Well, you're also not immune to draft busts, right? You draft a
Yeah,
quarterback high and it busts out, it sets everybody back. And
correct.
that's exactly what happened. I mean, Bailey Zappi starting over Mac Jones, the 15th pick in the draft. That sets you back years.
Yes. And with a guy like Belichick, no matter what situation you're in, I just don't know why you would hire him. So whatever team does hire him, I believe he will get a shot. Falcons were brought up a lot today, I heard, but
Mhm.
why? Like they're the same situation. Where they don't have a quarterback currently. You're going to
Well, it's the
trust
name.
him to get
Yeah.
a quarterback? I mean, yeah, you're just signing him as a coach because of his name and his history, and that's not going to get your organization anywhere. So whatever team signs him to me is taking a step back rather than a step forward. And that's all the respect to Belichick for what he's done, but you can't hire a coach based on his past, and especially when it's clear that the NFL has changed so much in the past few years, and Belichick is going the wrong direction with it. So, and he's going to demand a lot of power just because of who he is and what his history is. So there's too much drama there for me. I'd much rather go with a young coach who's ready, has a plan, who can work with guys. Not that Belichick can't, but
Yeah,
again,
I think
I
Belichick
don't know
maybe
why you would hire him.
yeah, let's say he goes to Atlanta. He can change the culture quickly, right? I don't think he's gonna be a Super Bowl contender and any deep playoff type
Sure.
team anymore. But, I mean, I think he can get a team that's, has a bad culture, get them to a good culture, maybe make the playoffs, right? Maybe win the division,
Yeah.
even in the NFC South or something. So I could definitely see that. I did see a little report that the Commanders are out on him. That was pretty surprising. I
That was
thought maybe
another
that
one.
was the spot to go, but
When you mentioned that, that's what I was going to say is that Commanders have been brought up as a potential for that reason, that he is a culture changer and all that,
mhm.
but they're
And
not
hope
interested. And I'm not
right,
surprised because of
right.
everything I just said. They're going to get a quarterback that they're ready to draft and develop. And Bill Belichick is the last guy I want to build and develop my quarterback. So no, thank you. I'm not surprised they
Well,
passed.
if
I
you're in
think
a
that's the right move.
position where you can't get a quarterback, maybe it's Ritter, right? And you wanna just get the most out of him and what you have. You don't think you're gonna get a quarterback that can start right away and at the 10th pick or 8th pick or wherever they are. the free agent market's a little dry, especially if Justin Fields doesn't come out. So you're looking at Russell Wilson or a draft, probably want to stick with your two guys. I mean, that to me, Belichick can coach, a team like that manages the game, right? That's a very Belichick type team for me, right? That's exactly what he wants. Like,
sure.
Let's say if he came to Buffalo and coached Josh Allen, I don't think Josh Allen is what he is today.
Correct. He
right? He would definitely, calm him down and believe in the system. At least that's what we've seen in New England.
Sure, maybe. Yeah. I mean, you could play the what if game with that all along, but now it's a matter of the jobs that are available and what he can do with them. And if he comes in if he goes to a place that needs a veteran quarterback and he brings somebody in, maybe that could work, but it might not. I'm not confident in that either. And if he goes to a place that needs a young quarterback, well, I've already said, like, that is the worst case scenario in my mind. You don't want Belichick developing your quarterback. I'm sorry.
And I think all the reports are saying Nick Saban not coming back to coaching. He's retired.
Yes.
Well, you said, probably a year off. These guys, that's all they know is football, right? And you sit home for a year, then you're like, okay, you missed the game, you missed the guys, you missed development. I mean, I think he comes back in some fashion.
You do? Because I think he
maybe
knows.
Maybe
he
not
sees
college.
the writing on the wall. He's a very intelligent guy. He sees the writing on the wall. He knows. Look,
college is changing, but you can go to the pros, go to another program once it settles out a little bit.
Maybe in another role, maybe as
maybe a consultant, something like that. We've seen Bill Parcells do that, right?
Sure.
Late in his career. So just two legends out of the game now. Really three legends.
Carroll too.
Pete Carroll's absolutely in that conversation.
Absolutely.
Love watching Pete Carroll on the sideline. He's got a lot of personality. Always like watching the Seahawks. They're always a gritty team.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of changes going on there. But it sounds like he might stay in-house, though, as well, right? I heard coordinator. I heard consultant, right? So I think he sticks around for that. So I wanted to ask you now, like these three guys out of football, who now is the top-tier coaches in college and in the NFL football?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Like when we talk about greats, who are the legends
the
now?
all-time greats. Yeah, I mean, college. It's tough with college because most of those guys go to the NFL, right? Saban was one of the only who was like the pillar of college football, right? Like, and everything else moved around him. Yeah, I mean, you think of the organizations in college, the institutions, I should say. Right now, what comes to mind? Georgia. Yeah, right. Like, exactly. And even in the past, if we go even further back, you got Texas Tech and Florida and all these schools now, but they've gone through so many coaches over the years that it's
right. There's no stability.
I can't name one other than Georgia that would have, that would be like
I can say the hot names, Lane Kiffin, Lincoln
Correct.
Riley.
Yeah, but we've all been there, done. Those guys have shuffled around themselves.
But they're not even the same conversation.
No, exactly. So if you ask me, who's the best coach in college football, it's going to be a diverse answer. There's not going to be a consensus.
Right. And I think that's where we are
Saban
now.
And everybody else.
Even on the NFL side, who now becomes the legendary coaches? I think it's Andy Reid.
Absolutely. And, there's been questions about, is he really going to
Is there anybody else? But is he even in the same conversation as these three guys,
I think, it depends on what you look at. One of the names that came up for me, speaking of, is Mike Tomlin, right? I mean, he's been in the league a long time now, and he's proven himself for a long time now. And in the NFL, if you're talking about top tier, to me, it's more about respect. No matter what, every coach in the league is going to have massive amounts of respect for a guy like Mike Tomlin. He's been there, done that, and he's proven he can do it with less, with more, with anything.
Sure.
Right? So
they haven't won a playoff game since 2017.
Exactly. And that's where the conversation comes in, right? Like now you're like, okay, they get to the playoffs and then they lose and they, they won a couple Super Bowls, but it's
I think you got to put Andy Reid there for sure.
Absolutely. Andy Reid is definitely,
especially as of late, they're the new dynasty, things like that. But outside of him, I don't agree with the Tomlin. I like Tomlin, but it's more mediocrity for him, right? He's been kind of make the playoffs.
Above 500, do it all with anything.
Sure. But can we get
respect as one of the best?
Can you build a team and put a roster together and make a Super Bowl run? And we haven't seen that in a long, long time from them.
True. But I would argue that, who else is there then? Give me one other coach that has any notoriety that would even come close.
It's a diverse answer.
That's right.
That's just where we are now. So it's kind of a sad day when these guys are walking away and you look back and you're going, there's no one else. Like this. It's going to take 10 years to develop a coach like this. Maybe Sean McVay becomes that in 10 years from now. Well,
I don't
maybe
know.
Kyle
He's talked
Shanahan's
about
that
stepping
guy
away,
10
right?
years
So,
from now. Right.
yeah, I
So,
mean, and with the speaking about college and pro football, it's interesting now. It used to be the best college coaches always got pulled up to head coaches, but that has turned into so much of a failure of late that hasn't worked out now with getting college coaches and pulling them up to head coaches in the NFL. That now it's more of a system of in-house offensive defensive coordinators become head coaches, and those college coaches move around to different college institutions, right?
mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see moving forward, 5-10 years from now, are we looking at a totally different landscape? Are college coaches now given a chance in the NFL, or is it the case where now they're
More
sticking to their
separation, right?
institutions?
That's what you're
Yeah, yeah.
saying. And
Yeah, because now I don't
it might
expect
be
many
more
college coaches
separation.
even this year
Well,
to
I
get
mean,
hired. It's going to
even
be
just
offensive defensive coordinators.
signing free agents is a lot different than the NIL system, right? It's
Mhm.
even a lot different than recruiting. So the challenge starts there, right? But again, I think the college football in the next 10 years, in my opinion, is going to look more like the pro game because there's only going to be 3 good conferences. You know what I mean? That's
And
almost
every
32
team's in them.
teams,
Yeah,
and all the good players, all the top recruits are going to go to those 3 conferences and those teams. And then you have the 12-team playoff coming up next year.
sure.
It's going to be those 3 conferences, all those teams from those 3 conferences, if I had to guess. But
Mhm,
I know,
mhm.
like, the SEC is tougher, so there might be more losses, things like that. But I think the top teams that are going to be winning in the playoffs, the 12-team playoffs, are going to be from the 3 major conferences. So it's much more narrow. And then there's going to be separation. There's been talk of separating from the NCAA. So that's a lot. That's a lot to take on. There's going to be major, major changes in the next 3 to 5 years for college football.
Absolutely, yeah, and college sports in general, because all of college sports revolves around college football, unfortunately, right?
Mhm.
And there has been talk of like, do we separate football and other sports from conference play, from whatever, in order to do that? Can we make our football team independent and do everything else
Right.
within a conference that makes more sense for those other teams? Because right now, when a team like Syracuse moved to the ACC, it was everything in basketball with it, even though
Right.
Syracuse was
It
more of a
changed a lot.
basketball team.
All
It
the
was a football
rivalries are
decision.
gone.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and then it just resets all the other sports that it made more sense to stay within the region or whatever. And yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's going to be another big change in college sports. But and it affects, again, the pros, the recruiting, the scouting. There are only going to be that many schools to scout now, and rare opportunities for anybody outside of those college teams to get seen or drafted or get their
Mhm.
shot in the
Well,
NFL.
also the transfer portal. Right now,
Yeah,
there's you get a player in college. You used to have him for 3 years. You could develop him, right? That's changed now. Like, okay, if I don't like it here, the coach changes or whatever, I'm out.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I think Texas is a good example of that. They've been able to recruit like the best quarterbacks. They're so deep in quarterbacks coming out of high school because those kids want to compete with the best to become the best, and then they would likely transfer out. Right? That's kind of the plan now. It changed the entire landscape. Whereas before, you would want to go to a school where you could win and be the starter for a number of years. So yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
tons of changes. But hate to see these guys go. I think it hurts the game with these guys out of it. I think.
But makes it more competitive maybe, and less storylines around the
Yeah,
coaches, gives guys a chance to step up.
yeah,
In
but
10 years, that could be Sean McDermott. If he wins a couple Super Bowls and he
sure,
sticks
it's all
around,
there
that's
for
gonna
him,
be
right?
him, right? Yeah,
All there for him. He definitely has a track record of winning
Sure.
playoff games, making the
Uh-huh.
playoffs.
10 wins or
Got to get
more, I
those
mean,
rings. Get 2
yeah,
rings. You're in the conversation.
exactly,
For
exactly.
sure. But I mean, beating Belichick is not going to feel the same. Beating the Patriots is not going to feel the same anymore, right? Whole new
Correct.
team. They might have a little competency now. So you're like, damn. Like if Mike
Yes,
Vrabel goes there, you're a little nervous.
they're at least on a path that makes sense
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He's playing modern football and not playing 2008 football. You know what I mean?
Correct, yeah.
All right, let's get into these games here. The first game up, Cleveland Browns at the Houston Texans. Cleveland -2 at Houston. This is a really fun matchup because all the pressure in this game is on Cleveland, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
The Texans are playing with house money. They're happy to be there. They're very excited about the rookie quarterback in CJ Stroud. And I don't think anyone thought they'd make the playoffs with a rookie quarterback, right? So they're just happy to be here. Meanwhile,
Oh,
Cleveland pressure's on to win a playoff game, right? It's been so long.
Yes, both have their strengths and their flaws coming into this game. Like you said, both are happy to be there and, overcame a lot this season to get there. I think a lot of people had the Browns as a potential playoff team, but that was with Deshaun Watson as quarterback and, the roster, Nick Chubb as their running back. Both of those guys gone most of the season and they're still right here. Both of their best players on offense. So that tells you they've been able to overcome a lot. And obviously, yes, like you mentioned, most people, not myself, were not very high on the Texans, and they came out of nowhere to win their division now because the Jaguars fell and make the playoffs. And they certainly earned that. And I love the playmakers on that team. Nico Collins stepping up in a huge way, as I expected, as I said in the preseason he would. With a quarterback like CJ Stroud throwing him the ball. Dalton Schultz, the reliable veteran that he's been able to use as well. CJ Stroud has been able to use. And, some young guys sprinkled in there throughout the season on top of that. And their defense actually playing up to par and playing very well this year. I think that is, the reason why they're here, but they're still a very vulnerable team. We saw it, in the last game against Indy, that even against a subpar defense, they sometimes struggled to run the ball, to control the clock, to make the plays when they needed to. And Cleveland's defense is a huge step up from the Colts defense, right? So that's a different world. But their Texans defense, same thing. I saw a lot of good, but some bad. And Cleveland's offense under Joe Flacco out of nowhere, off the couch, Joe Flacco has improved, but I still don't have high expectations for their offense. So this game to me could go either way. The Texans are playing at home, even though in my mind, the Browns were the better team all year because they won their division and were the 4th seed. The Texans get this at home. Whether or not that'll actually play a factor, we'll see in this game. But you could make the argument here for both teams. And I will say that, I'm going to do my pick 6 with all the games this weekend. And this is my least confidence pick of the week because both teams I can make an argument for. My rooting heart is with the Texans. You know that. I've been on them all year. I said they were my moneymaker. My rooting heart is with the Texans, but my pick in my football instinct tells me Cleveland with that defense and with Joe Flacco, a veteran,
for sure.
they're going to get this win even at the Texans. So they're going to,
walk away. I got to correct myself. Cleveland won a playoff game in 2020. That was their last playoff win. So they're not one of those teams like the Detroit Lions who hasn't had a playoff win in 20 years. But Cleveland only had 4 winning seasons since 2000, 2002, 2007, 2020, and now 2023. 3 playoff appearances in that time, counting this year, and they've only won 1 of those. So that's a lot. And they did finish the season as, least amount of yards allowed and least amount of passing yards allowed, number 1 defense. So the defense has been carrying them all year. They were 5-1 with Deshaun Watson. They went through tons of quarterback changes. And I think they landed on Joe Flacco, which is surprising. But for this game, though, I just think CJ Stroud struggles with the secondary, right? I think the strength of the team is the secondary for Cleveland.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be a challenge for CJ Stroud. And I don't know if they can, rely on the run game in Houston, right? So if the passing game's not working out, can you rely on the run game like you have to in the playoffs, right?
Right.
I think I just think Cleveland's a big challenge for them.
I think they could in certain circumstances, but not as a whole, right? They haven't been able to prove we can run, and if that's what we want to do, and do it, especially against a good defense, So I agree that could be a weakness of theirs, unless CJ Stroud himself gets a lot of run yards from that defense, covering well and doing everything and opening spaces where he could run with the ball himself. So
this game could change quickly if Cleveland's offense struggles.
Yes, agreed. Because CJ Stroud is capable of making a big play at any moment, right? And that's the kind of quarterback you want to have. And, even though Joe Flacco has shown consistency and done very well, I'd still rather have, if I need one play, I'd rather have CJ Stroud than Joe Flacco out there, right? So we'll see if that ends up being a factor or if Cleveland's defense is able to, push back enough for them to get a lead on offense and, control the game, basically.
You're taking Cleveland. I'm going to go with Cleveland as well. I just think it's a big challenge for CJ Stroud. But hey, it's playoffs, right? The line's -2, so anything can happen.
And my
Likely
heart
a
is with
close
the
game.
Texans. My heart is with the Texans. So.
Yeah, they'll be good for a long time, I think. But
Yes,
first playoff game for a rookie quarterback.
absolutely.
It's another gear, right? And that's why it's so fun to watch. I just think the Cleveland defense is built for the playoffs, right? That I feel good about that. So, all right, next one here. Looks like I'm missing one here. All right, let's talk about
the Bills Steelers. That's Sunday.
Yeah, that's Sunday. Let's just talk Bills Steelers, and I'll pull up the other graphic for the Dolphins.
Yeah,
Chiefs.
that's for the Sunday night game or Saturday night game. Sorry. So this is the Sunday 1:00 game. Yeah, but it's the biggest of the weekend for us Bills fans. Obviously, Steelers at the Bills. Huge game here. Bills obviously getting that 2 seed by beating the Dolphins in the last week of the season. Playing at home, getting the home field advantage, which now might backfire a little bit on them if you want to say that. I think. Looking at these two teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in, the Buffalo Bills, the Steelers are, without a doubt, I think, the weakest team in the AFC. And, the Bills have a lot of momentum coming in. Roster-wise, I think the Steelers are the weakest roster in the AFC, and the Bills are one of the strongest rosters. I don't think anybody could objectively look at these two teams and tell me that the Steelers are a better team and the Steelers should win this game. Right? Objectively, anybody, not even a Steelers fan, is going to sit there and say our guys X, Y, and Z are better, so that's why we're the better team. However, the home field advantage might backfire because of the bad weather. It's supposed to be very high winds, wind chills, cold. The Bills can play in the cold, but it's nasty. The wind that is an equalizer because Josh Allen is your X factor versus the run game, which the Bills have been running the ball well, but obviously, if the Steelers can run the ball, that's what they would rather do, and have the wind take away a little bit of Josh Allen. That helps them majorly, I think. And with no wind and no situation, I think the Bills win this game easily by 30-plus points. And that's not an exaggeration on my point. Yeah. I just think they're that much better. The momentum is that much better. The Steelers are playing without TJ Watt, which I think is a big factor for them, just leadership-wise on the field. And
TJ Watt's huge because if Josh Allen loves to roll right, that's his favorite thing. And if you've TJ Watt there, I think he does a lot less of that, right?
Correct.
Josh Allen makes a ton of plays when he's rolling right. So that's actually a big loss when it comes down to evaluating the matchup, right? That's a big loss for Pittsburgh. But still, they're getting some players back, right? In their secondary, I think Micah Fitzpatrick's coming back. So that's the Steelers are going to play really, really good defense, right? It comes down to Mason Rudolph. Can he make the plays? We saw him make plays the last 2 weeks to get him here, right? He's actually played pretty well overall. The offense has been horrible all year, but now they have a running game, and now Mason Rudolph makes a play or two, and they've been winning games. And that's what you got to pay attention to. Will you confuse Mason Rudolph if you're the Bills defense? They do a lot of disguise, and really Mason Rudolph doesn't have a lot of playing time this year, so that's a big factor for me.
Yes.
And I think Josh Allen getting hot in the second half of the Miami game, I think it carries over, right?
Yes.
It's very hot and cold, right? But it goes through cold streaks. But it seems like I think he went 14 of 15 passing the ball in the second half in Miami. So, I mean, that's got to carry over, right?
It was the best football we saw from Josh Allen, at least in the last 5 weeks or so. And that's saying something because we've been on a win streak.
Since
right?
Philadelphia, probably.
So,
right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And carrying that momentum in will be huge. Even if there's wind, I'd much rather have Josh Allen than basically anybody else in the NFL in a win game like that, because he's still going to be able to be dynamic with both his arm and his legs, right? Mm-hmm. So I think both of those things are going to be key, right? Knowing when you're going to be able to pass, field direction, and how you're going to be able to pass short slanted passes. Well, Josh Allen zings the ball pretty quickly, so maybe he can avoid some of that high wind when he's in the right direction and running the ball.
Gabe Davis out for this game.
Mm-hmm.
You think that has a big impact on the passing game at all?
No.
It's playoff Gabe, though.
Who?
It's
never heard of him. Yeah, no. Listen, the offense didn't skip a beat with him out last week, and I think that is going to be the same thing this week. I've said it all along with Gabe Davis. He's hot and cold. He's hit or miss. I know they say he does a lot for blocking and making plays for other people, whatever. But him not being on the field has not affected this team yet. So I don't expect that to be a major loss in any sense. However, there's a significant injury report for the Buffalo Bills as well. Again, TJ Watt being the big one for the Steelers, but not just, Gabe Davis, but Deion Dawkins with the cut on his hand, probably going to play just fine. Terrell Dotson, Rasul Douglas might not play in this game, which means you're going to be with some younger guys out there again. Dane Jackson certainly can step up. We know what he is. But, if Dotson's not able to go and you have to fill that role again, will that look the same as it did last week? It was great. The Bills didn't really miss a beat on defense despite all of the injuries. But could that play a factor here? Maybe. Certainly, if you're the Bills, you're thinking, I'd rather rest guys who are even a little bit injured and get through this Steelers game, because all you need to do is win. You don't need to dominate them if guys are still banged up. But if the weather, again, the wind is a factor, and it comes down to just running the ball straight up, it could be a lot closer and less comfortable than I want it to be as a Bills fan, right?
Yeah,
but
fair.
I do believe when it comes down to will Mason Rudolph be the guy to make a play? No, probably not, right? I don't think the Bills defense is going to let that happen. They're too good. But if it comes down to run game for both of these teams, I think it could be a lot closer than we want it to be.
Yeah, and I think with Gabe Davis out, look, Diggs gets all the attention, right? That's exactly what's going to go on here.
Yes.
And the Bills are going to have to figure out how to run the football versus a really good front, right? And they also need to get rid of the ball quickly. Right?
Yes.
I think that's the best, when they're efficient in the passing game, Josh doesn't have to do all this craziness, right? Save that stuff for the fourth quarter. So I think get the tight ends involved in this game, right? That's exactly what I lean towards. And they've been getting a lot of targets, but I think, there's more targets to be had from Dawson Knox, right? We've seen him make key catches and key moments a lot before Kincaid got here. And I think he's still capable of doing that. He just really hasn't got the targets this year because he's more the blocking role. Kincaid's more the F tight end, out in the slot. So that's an interesting dynamic. I think it's been effective for the Bills, but I think with, Gabe Davis out, you're relying on Sherfield, you're relying on, Hardy. I think you target the tight ends more than you normally would.
Yeah, I would say you're going to. I mean, our leading receiver last week was who? Khalil Shakir, right? In terms of yardage and catches, he really stepped up, and I think he can do that again this week. You put Shakir and the two tight ends on the field, and I'm loving it, right? So you have Diggs, you got Shakir, you've got Kincaid and Knox. Those are going to be your big time playmakers, and we did see against the Dolphins, Sherfield and Hardy really step up and make plays as well. But I think they're going to be given more limited opportunities than the other guys.
And for sure. And I think if you're the Bills defense, focus for me looking at the Steelers team is look, their running game has been pretty effective the last few weeks. They're a totally different offense when they can't run the ball. And that's kind of been their struggle all year. They fired offensive coordinator for that reason, right? Because I don't think they have a quarterback that can make a lot of plays with their arm, right? I think Mason Rudolph's probably the biggest arm on the team, most effective. I mean, Trubisky has a big arm too, but I mean, Mason Rudolph's actually making the plays. So I think if I'm the Bills defense, you stop the run, make them one-dimensional, force them to throw, and I think that'll cause problems, for the Steelers, right? Because I think when they run the ball effectively, it opens up some play action, which I think is what they've been hitting on, right? So yeah, very interesting dynamic. This line though, +10. I don't know if I can pick the Bills +10.
I bet this early in the week. Actually, I did put some money down on the Bills +10 before we knew that the weather was going to include 40-mile-an-hour winds. Because if on the field, no matter normal game conditions, even if it's windy, snowy, whatever, the Bills should win by 3 touchdowns. Wins. The Bills should win by 3 touchdowns easily, like 30+ points. I'm talking. No. However, if the wind is limiting, I still like the Bills to win by 10 or more. So I want 2 touchdown leads, right? Game. So I think that ultimately would come down to maybe the Bills have a 10-point lead, and then the Steelers are trying to drive and they have to force the situation. Bills capitalize, get an extra field goal. They end up winning by 13 or 21 if they end up getting another touchdown. So I think that's the range that is reasonable to me. That 13 to 21, as long as the weather isn't absolutely limiting and nobody can pass the ball whatsoever.
Yeah, like a
Then you're-
whiteout conditions,
Then
right?
yeah, because then you're going to
Which is
talk
there's a
about
risk of that, right? It's 40-mile-an-hour winds. If you get
yes,
a little snow, that's whiteout conditions.
yeah, and 40-mile-an-hour winds to throw the ball in, it's going to be very difficult,
Yeah.
right? So
Oh, the
then
field goal
it could
game
probably
is
end up
changed.
being right, like a 6-0 or a 10-3
Yeah.
game, right? And that's where that 10-point spread could hurt.
Yeah.
But I right now I'm comfortably taking the Bills -10.
Yeah, I'm taking the Steelers. Bills to win, Steelers to the point. It's too much for me. Bills are banged up. Steelers looking fully healthy without TJ Watt. He's the only exception. Everybody else is looking healthy, coming
The
back.
only
Yeah, it's a big one for them, but they got a lot of key players on this defense, right?
correct.
They have a
Their
lot of
defense has been
stars.
playing
Cayman
very well.
Hayward.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't
And
got to
guys have
name them.
stepped up
People
in
know
their
who they are.
must-win games the last 3
Right.
weeks. They've had basically must-win
Right.
games
And
against opponents who were favored with them.
And the Bills'
really.
offense hasn't been super explosive, right? We're talking about the second half of the Miami game being effective, but that's all we've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks. So
Sure.
again, if there's a whiteout conditions, I think it's a run type game. Josh Allen makes a few plays. Bills win 17-10, but I would put my money on the Steelers with the 10 points. It's playoff football. I mean, they almost lost to Skylar Thompson last year.
It's true.
Versus
That's very
Miami,
true.
right?
Mm-hmm. And that was
So, yeah.
in good conditions. So yeah,
Exactly.
You never know.
Exactly.
You never know.
So yeah, I'll take Pittsburgh. I think that's the first time I picked against the Bills all year. Anyway,
Against the spread, though,
yeah, against the spread, right? That's very key thing there. All right, Dolphins at Chiefs. Miami plus 4.5 at Kansas City. This is the Saturday night game. This is probably the most fun game to watch outside of the Bills. Obviously, we're Bills guys, but this is the one you want to watch, right?
Yeah, and really, when you talk about storylines and what can happen here, the Dolphins ending the season on such a low note, losing to the Bills, Kansas City not being able to find their footing, not being a dominant team this year, looking like a shell of themselves, looking very vulnerable for the first time, but playing at home in weather conditions that severely favor them, the opposite of what I was saying about Buffalo now. Where the weather conditions supposed to be frigidly cold, high of like 4 degrees, I think it was said last time I checked, and wind chills of minus 14.
Yeah, I saw
so
that.
that's the point where even any Dolphins team, I think the record is like 0-17 in games below 30 degrees or something, and this one's way below that, right? So certainly that's an advantage anytime, but against the Dolphins, that's even more of an advantage. And both of them having their negative storylines coming into the playoffs makes it more interesting as well. However, if you told me these teams were playing in a dome, right, no weather conditions, I would absolutely be on the Dolphins to win this game, to win the game, right? Not even, no matter, even if it was in Kansas City or a Kansas City crowd, whatever you want to say in this hypothetical situation with no weather. The Dolphins, I think, are the better team, the better roster. They're playing better on offense. They play adequately on defense enough that I think that they would beat a Kansas City team the way it is built right now. This home field advantage, however, is huge. So it makes me grit my teeth a little bit. But my pick is Miami with the points. I mean, 4.5 to me is too much. I think they keep it close with Kansas City. And, again, depending on how severely limiting that weather is, which is an advantage to Kansas City, I still think the Dolphins can stay in it. I would pick them to win in normal conditions. I'm taking them with the points.
That's surprising to me because we haven't seen Miami play good in 2 weeks. This team, they played each other in Germany, and Kansas City just beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Miami has lost every game against a good team this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Pat Mahomes is just better than Tua, right? I mean, that sounds like a lazy analysis.
Yes,
that's true. Pat Mahomes has so much playoff experience. They're at home, right? And I understand the receivers, and like when the cold weather hits, the Kansas City receivers are going to struggle as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still Pat Mahomes magic, right? He just knows what to do. I just trust him a lot more. And Tua, I think, has kind of fallen off a little bit the last 2 weeks, right? When the team needs a play, like they had a chance to go down and tie the game versus Buffalo.
Correct. And they couldn't.
Second throws an interception.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the kind of the knock on Tua. He's really had a great year. Not trying to take anything away from him, but these key moments against good teams where the games flip, right? They were close. They were in the game with Baltimore. Couldn't match them score for score. and then the game gets out of hand for them, right? Baltimore keeps making plays, Miami just falls off, right? We've seen that time and time again. And I just think Kansas City's just going to be ready. They're going to have a good game plan. They're at home. And I just like them more, right? I just think Pat Mahomes makes those plays and Tua doesn't in the fourth quarter. So I think it'll be somewhat close. I don't think this will be a 40-10 type game, right? I think it'd be more like the Bills game where it was just a one score and whoever makes the special teams play or Pat Mahomes makes a play that Tua doesn't wins the game.
Sure. I could see that happening as well, but I'm still on the Dolphins there. So we disagree on one. That's good.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Well, I mean, two, if you count the Bills game too,
yeah.
I guess I picked the Bills.
Also, Kansas City going to Buffalo would be fun. Miami would go to Baltimore if they win. Also a fun game. So really I'm happy either way, to be honest. All right, here we go. Next one, Sunday at 4:30. Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys. Green Bay's +7 going to Dallas. Jordan Love looks pretty sharp lately, right?
Yeah.
Looked pretty sharp in that last game.
Right. You got to give him his props. He's done well down the stretch, but he's, again, inconsistent. Yeah. Has he been able to do it when it matters most?
Yeah, this is a lot like the Cleveland Texans matchup. It's just all the pressure's on Dallas. So much pressure on Dallas. They're at home. They lucked out, won the division, right? There's rumors Mike McCarthy loses his job if you don't go deep in the playoffs. And Green Bay's just happy to be here, right? Their quarterback made the playoffs.
Sure.
It looks like they have another guy for the next X amount of years.
Yeah, and they're playing free
in a row.
Right? And they're healthy, right? They got their big star wide receiver back. I know you're a huge fan. And
Watson, beast.
Yeah, that matters, right? That matters in a game like this in the playoffs when you're going to be unloading it and being free with the ball you play, right? Because you got nothing to lose. This is win or go home against a very good defense at home, who's playing at home in Dallas. So Green Bay knows they're going to have to pull out all the stops. They're not going to play shy. They're going to be ready for this game. And like you said, Jordan Love has been making the good decisions down the stretch to put them in this situation. However, Dallas to me is just too strong of a team at home, especially, but their defense, I think, will contain Green Bay in the beginning of the game. And when they get a lead, that defense and that energy on the whole team really shifts for this Cowboys team. And I really think that that's going to be the difference maker. They only need to get up by 7-0, 6-0. And I think they're going to run away with it after that. And Green Bay is going to fall behind and they might score a few points. They might make a few plays, but I don't think they're going to be able to stay with the Cowboys. And it only takes one big play for the Cowboys, an interception, whatever, to keep that momentum and steal it forever, right?
Yeah.
And even if Green Bay goes up early, I don't think the Dallas offense misses a beat and is still able to come back. But it's really that Dallas defense that I think controls the momentum of the team and will do that in this game. So I'm taking Dallas at home -7. I think they win, by 10 points probably what a game that has been hyped to be all about Mike McCarthy. But, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott have really had that chemistry going as well. And what I've seen out of Green Bay's defense, I think I'd much rather be on the side of Dallas for this one.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to call the upset. I think Green Bay can pull this game off. I think it's a bad matchup for Dallas. I've also been thinking this all week, so I'm excited to talk about it. But Dallas has struggled to stop the run, right? Especially in big games. Their linebackers, whatever it is, there's huge holes. We saw what the Bills did to them. Huge holes in the run game, right? They really haven't played a good game in a while. I mean, they smashed the Commanders, but the Commanders are literally trying to lose for their future. They lost 8 games in a row. You know what I mean? So we're not going to count that one. But Green Bay's running game, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, is going to be a huge challenge for Dallas, right? That's got to be their focus to stop those two guys. Not to mention Micah Parsons coming off the edge. Like, that'll give Jordan Love a lot of problems. But again, A.J. Dillon, phenomenal run blocker, and pass protecting running back. So I think there's help there. Getting Christian Watson back, they can make a few plays, right? They've had their young receiving core stepped up. And the last thing is their defense has also been really good. CeeDee Lamb's the playmaker for Dallas. We see Brandon Cooks once in a while, but they got Jared Alexander, right? You put him on Lamb. I think that's a fun matchup to watch all day. I think it gives CeeDee Lamb problems. He's one of the best corners in the league.
I tell you what, they could really use a guy like Rasul Douglas on that defense right now, couldn't they?
Yes.
They probably didn't think they were going to be in this situation.
Well, I think they want to reset at cornerback right in the offseason, but here you are. You have him. I think who makes the plays for Dallas is my question.
Yeah, and I think Cooks is a good guy to bring up as a secondary guy who's been making electric plays when he's catching the ball.
And CeeDee Lamb, like, he's one of a kind. He's going to have a couple plays here and there.
Of course,
if you even limit him, though, who do they turn to?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's still on Dak in the pass game. He's got to find his weapons on offense and distribute the ball accordingly, whether that's, screen plays or deep passes to Cooks or whatever else it might be. Dak has been playing at a level this year where I feel like he can get that done. But if the Cowboys lose this game, that would be the story of the NFL season. Like, nothing else matters. Doesn't matter what else happened. Cowboys lost in the first round in a season where they won the NFC East again, right? And we're one of the top teams in the NFC. So that would be that. I couldn't help but laugh, but I wouldn't want that to be the storyline of the season. I feel like there's more important things. Dallas will likely lose in the second round, where they always lose, it seems, over the last 20, 30 years. But I don't know that Green Bay is strong enough. Yeah. But you can't take this lightly. Like you said, this is not a guaranteed thing.
It's a good matchup for Green Bay.
They got to be coming ready to play. Yeah.
Dallas might show up, right? They play well at home. They know the pressure's on, so it might not be the same Dallas team we've seen in the last few weeks, right?
Yes.
But you have to pick one upset. You picked Miami. Mine's Green Bay. I like the matchup for Green Bay.
There you go.
As long as they control the game and Jordan Love doesn't make any mistakes, right? I think they're going to be all right.
It's a big if against this defense. They take the ball away.
They win by 10. Well. I'm taking points too.
Wow, you're taking them to embarrass Dallas at home.
If you can control the game with the run game, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, keep them off the field. If they can't stop the run, you're going to control the
in your situation
all day.
In your situation, though, like I said, the momentum of Dallas goes on that defense. If the defense finds himself in a hole early and isn't playing well, then I could see that happening where Green Bay could end up running away with it.
Yeah, and the way Jordan Love's been playing, man, if he plays anything like that, Dallas is going to be surprised. All right, here we go. Two more. This is the Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night game, 8 o'clock, 8:30, I think, actually. Rams at the Lions. Matt Stafford returning to Detroit for their first home playoff game in a long time. They haven't won a playoff game since 92, I think it is, 91. Been a long time. Longest in the NFL, right?
Only one playoff victory in their entire NFL history.
Hurts.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Rams are +3 going into Detroit. This is a fun one.
Oh, yeah. This is no walk in the park for either of these teams. The Rams playing very well coming into this, right? One of the teams to go beyond expectations the most this season, I would say, right? Puka Nacua coming out of nowhere, being this, wide receiver who has been reliable for them. Cooper Kupp is now healthy. Stafford playing healthy, right? With his injury concerns coming into the season. The defense has kind of been an afterthought with the Rams, which is interesting because you still have Aaron Donald, the best player ever, on defense. And then just finding a way to win games, finding a way to get it done in a tough division, in a tough, place.
Good scheme and a smart quarterback, right?
Yeah, and right now they're healthy. They got to rest week 17. They're feeling good. That's a good place to be for them. And the Lions playing at home is good for them. That's an advantage. The fact that they are also maintaining the run game. I've seen too many holes from the Lions this season where it's been like, yeah, they should win this game, and then they blow it, right? And you cannot overlook this Rams team because they are playing well and they are capable of doing it all. They have a lot of veterans. They've been in the playoffs before. They know what they're doing. The Lions, new to the playoffs, new to trying to figure this situation out, new to playing at home in the playoffs with the expectation they're the favorites here. But I do think if I look at it objectively from a football standpoint, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I expect that Detroit will pull off their second win in playoff NFL history against the Rams in this game and get it done at home to move on and in the NFC playoffs. And This is going to be a fun game. I do think it's going to go back and forth for a while, but I think what I've seen out of the Lions of late with their run game, balancing the pass, they're healthy. I think that's going to play a big factor in what they're able to do in this one, especially coming down to the fourth quarter, and their defense being able to limit a play. Aiden Hutchinson, still one of my favorite players in the NFL on defense. Watching him play and what he can do, he could be the one to make a play to seal it.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams seem like the ultimate finesse team to me on offense, right? Kyron Williams having a phenomenal year out of nowhere. Like you said, Puka Nacua, the rookies, right? It's very Sean McVay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I just think the Lions are going to play so physical in this game, right? This is what they've been waiting for, and it's also the Jared Goff revenge game, right?
Yeah, right.
He wants to stick it to him. He does. So I think he has a good game as well, and I think if the Lions can establish the run with David Montgomery, pounding it up the middle,
and
big
Gibbs,
run with Gibbs, Gibbs, that play action game works so well for Detroit that I think that's really the key to the game. You have to establish the run if you're Detroit. And that's also true for the Rams. I don't think, these receivers are probably scheme based. If you get outside of the scheme, it gets a little weird, right? Are they talented enough? Can they beat these corners? I got questions about that, but the scheme's so good. They're wide open, and Stafford's so smart with the football. It works really well. And that's why they've won a lot of games this year. But if you're asking me who wins this one, I think it's Detroit. They're just more physical.
Mm-hmm.
They're much, much more physical.
That's what I meant.
In playoff football, that's what matters, right? I'm a little worried about the young players. There's a lot of the Lions defense relies on a lot of rookies, and young players, right? So if they make one mistake here and there, Sean McVay will exploit it. Matt Stafford will exploit it. He's played a ton of football in his career. So yeah, this will be a really fun one. I think it's going to be super, super close. I think it comes down to 21-20, right? So I'm gonna take Detroit to win this one 21-20.
But the Rams with the points in that
Rams
case,
with the points. Yep.
Okay. So another one where you're split, but I'm taking the Lions both ways. So we'll see. Should be a fun game though. Yeah, this NFL football, the games we've talked about so far, phenomenal, right? And then we have to get to the next one.
yeah. All right, last one on the slate, Monday Night Football.
Wah, wah.
Philadelphia Eagles traveling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Philadelphia -3 at Tampa Bay. And this is such an interesting story because we should be playing games in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They all year long, they're the 1 seed, right?
They were 10-1.
One game, through 11 games, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a huge – the collapse of the Eagles is a big story because here they are now going to Tampa Bay to play a team who should not be in the playoffs.
At home.
Yeah. Who can't run the football.
Yeah, right? No run game whatsoever. The quarterback is meh at best, and it's unbelievable that Tampa Bay has found themselves in this situation to play a home game against the Eagles. But overall, and the Eagles just playing like absolute garbage down the stretch, not just losing it, right? They've really lost it. All the stories coming out about them finding chemistry off the field and players are getting together and doing this or whatever. That's great, but you got to play the games on the field. However, I do think this matchup is a good thing for the Eagles to get their momentum back in the postseason, right? They're going to rely on, their run game. DeAndre Swift is going to be playing their pass game. Their defense to step up. They have a few injured guys in this one. But most of their most of their players are healthy and playing. And even if they weren't, I'd still like this Eagles roster and Eagles team to beat this Tampa Bay team who clinched a playoff berth on 3 field goals against the worst team in football.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's unbelievable how bad Tampa is as a playoff team to me. And the Eagles are just that much better that I think they'll overcome.
And that's what scares me a little about this game is why is it -3 and not -15?
Should be a lot bigger. Yeah. So
I think -3 makes me a little nervous.
I think that speaks to where the Eagles have been, how the Eagles have been playing the last 4 or 5 weeks, right? They were supposed to beat up on Arizona. Arizona beat them, right? And they really haven't been playing well enough to get a big favor on the road, right? You're talking about home team usually gets 3 points, so that would mean this is a 6-point swing. I certainly think the Eagles should win by 7 to 10, if not more. So that's why this is one of my favorite bets of the weekend for that reason. But I don't think it's going to be a fun game to watch. It's not going to be very entertaining. The way the Eagles have been playing, I don't expect them to win by 40, which might be fun. And the way Tampa Bay backed themselves into this situation somehow, some way, I just, they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, Tampa Bay finishes the season with the least amount of rushing yards on the year, dead last in the league. So this entire game goes through Baker Mayfield, right? Because you're also playing arguably the most talented defensive line in the league, right? I think there's a good argument there. Philadelphia's defense finished 10th in rushing defense. However, at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield is going to have to throw the ball to win, right? And I think that's just going to be a huge challenge. You're not going to be able to control the time of possession if you're Tampa Bay, right? So I think it's Jalen Hurts is going to be on the field a lot longer because they can run the football with the quarterback, with DeAndre Swift. And we haven't even got started in the receivers, the tight end. I mean, there's so many playmakers on the Eagles offense. I think this is a 30-14 win by the Eagles. I think it's a complete blowout. And I think the Buccaneers might do a little bit on defense, but they just will have no answers against this Philadelphia defense. So I like Philly by a big one. That's why the -3 makes me nervous because it's
skeptical.
So much different.
What does Vegas know? What do the secret people know who are making the lines? Yeah. But I do think it's just a reflection of how the Eagles have played down the stretch, less than what is looking at the objective, what team is expected to do better than the other here.
All right, what do you got for one bold prediction for the weekend? What do you got? Putting you on the spot.
A bold prediction? I mean, for Miami to win in cold weather against a good team is pretty bold. I'm not confident. I'm not severely confident on that, though, but that's my pick, right now. I think that would be the most bold thing to happen. But I'll say, I'm trying to think of what would be more bold than that. The Bills winning comfortably, the Bills playing a comfortable game because they haven't in the last 6-7 weeks, so that would
I'm gonna go with 4 missed field goals in the Bills Steelers game.
Oh, because of the wins. Oh, that is bold. That's bold. Mm-hmm.
You got nothing?
Turnovers. I think turnovers are going to obviously play a factor in games as well. I think Steelers with 2+ turnovers means Bills' big victory. Let's put it that way.
Okay, you're both going with the Bills game. Okay.
That's the most confident one I can speak to.
Fair.
And bet the over on the Dallas.
I thought you were going to say something like Tua throws for 500 yards and Tyreek Hill has 3 touchdowns versus the Chiefs.
Well, in situations like that, it's probably not good because you need to balance the run. One of the other factors is Raheem Mostert's coming back for that game.
Yeah, and Waddle.
And right? I do think that plays a bigger role on what they can do on offense. He's been very good this year. So they've been able to rely on him, and that opens the passing game a little more. And Waddle, obviously. And I think that those factors could make for a more reliable offense, but more balanced. You don't want Tua to throw for 500 yards. That tells me they're down and they're trying desperately to get back in it. And I don't think that'll lead to a win in their case.
So it could be a back and forth game, right? Pat Mahomes could answer. It could be, score for score. We've seen that a lot with him. Especially the Chiefs always get down early, then come back in the playoffs and win. That's just what they do. Another bold prediction. How about Joe Flacco throws 3 interceptions and loses the game?
Ooh, that is very bold there. That's for sure. I mean, loses to the Texans, throws 3 interceptions to the Texans.
That'd be wild. That would be a wild.
That would be very exciting. The other player I thought of is Jared Goff, right? Jared Goff going for 300+ and 3 touchdowns against his former team. That would be like just the exclamation point on it because they traded him away because he wasn't able to do that, right? They thought, you're not the guy to get it done for us. Now it ended up working out for them. They won a Super Bowl. The Rams did after getting rid of him, but he's also been very good for Detroit.
That hurt, right? That stuck around.
So I think he plays up for this game. He's had his up and down days this season as he has in his career. Goff has. So I think that this game could be the game where you're like, oh crap, Goff just did that to his former team. 300 yards.
All the pressure's on Goff. I mean, I don't think there's that much pressure on Stafford.
Right, he's already done it. Yeah,
they're telling Lions fans not to wear your Stafford jersey, but they're going to. So I mean, that's a plus, right? For if you're Matt Stafford, you just made the playoffs, you're happy to be here, and now you go to Detroit and you got fans there. So
we'll see.
It's a fun one for sure. Anyway, it looks to be a great weekend. Looking forward to watching the game. I think we're going out to a place to watch the first set and then watching the second set at home. So looking forward to it. Going to be a great weekend.
Oh yeah, should be fun. Definitely going to be in the man cave. We'll see if company comes over. They should. I've invited a few people over. We'll see, just to watch the game peacefully at home and see how it all goes. But I got a lot on the line. Always it's betting season now, right? This is where all the bettors come out for the postseason.
Was
so
it like a Facebook message or something? Because I didn't get one.
Oh, you're not coming? You're not coming over to Syracuse?
I didn't get an invite.
Local. You're more than invited. Any game you want this postseason, come to my place and watch. So,
anyways, be sure to check us out on Tuesday. We'll have all the recap from the games, break down the storylines. Maybe we'll have some head coaching hires. Maybe we'll have more coaches fired, right? Those storylines we'll break down on Tuesday, 7:30, and then we'll get you ready for the divisional round next Thursday. Be sure to tune in with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be great to recap the games. Like we said, a lot of good action here. And as always, thanks for kicking it with us.
Deuces.